financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
Welcome. You are listening to the Financial Survival Network. I'm Kerry Lutz. It's October 9th, 2017, less than 90 days before the ball drops in Times Square. And who knows, maybe the axe will be falling shortly on some of these inflated companies. Maybe just maybe precious metals are really in the thick of it and they'll go. Well, we won't even talk about Bitcoin. As always, email us at kl@kerrylutz.com. So John Rubino's with us now. And John, good morning.
Morning, Kerry. Yeah, lots going on lately. Want to start with peak complacency. Which is becoming a bigger and bigger story now. That is basically the fact that stocks are at record levels now in terms of both numerical price points for instance, the S&P 500 stocks and their valuation. At the same time that volatility is at an all-time low. In other words, nothing's bouncing around out there. They're just kind of marching higher a little bit at a time. And everybody has begun to assume that that's going to be the case going forward. So nobody is, for instance, betting on volatility in any way because there is no volatility out there. And those two things, either one of them is a signal for a bear market, but put the two together and it's a signal for a crash historically. We haven't had governments intervening this aggressively in the markets in the past, which is part of the cause for the collapse in volatility. And a lot of people assume, and maybe they're right, maybe they're wrong, I don't know about this, but that governments are going to be able to control volatility in the markets going forward by standing ready to intervene whenever there's any kind of a squiggle. If stocks start to fall, they come in and they buy stocks. And so that has led a lot of people to the conclusion that you can pretty much buy equities at any valuation level, and the government is going to push them up from here because it's now a public policy issue. Stock prices are a public policy lever. Mm-hmm. And if a government with a central bank that has an unlimited printing press decides that ever higher equity prices are in the national interest, then they kind of have the power to make that happen. But that's at the cost of valuation levels that just go to insane levels, which means that when and if the markets do correct, there's a huge air pocket under their prices.
Oh, yeah. The VIX index has dropped to like its lowest ever. It's under 10. It's under 10 now. And, whenever it hits these lows, it's like guaranteed it's going to pop back up. But then what we've seen is it pops back up. It'll go to 11 or 12, maybe even 13. And then it calms down because something happens. A monetary spigot is engaged or opened. And then it's back to the same old thing. VIX settles down, and one of these days it's going to go up and it's going to keep going up and it's not going to come down.
Well, that's how it's worked historically. You get the VIX at 11 or 12, and then 3 months later it's at 40 or 50 because you get this huge crack in the market that is brought about by complacency. Complacency causes crisis and vice versa. Low prices cause high prices and high prices cause low prices. And that's just the nature of markets, which are, in effect, emotionally driven entities in the short run, at least. In the long run, value wins out, fundamentals win out. But in the short run, emotion dominates. I'll tell you what, though, Kerry, there is another area of complacency that might be even scarier than market valuations right now. And that is in the area of online data. Okay. We have our bank accounts online now and our brokerage accounts online. So the average person, at least the average well-off person, has most of their wealth in accounts that can theoretically at least be hacked. And lately, we've seen hacking just go out of control. The Equifax data breach was hundreds of millions of people having their sensitive financial data stolen, because Equifax is a credit rating agency that accumulates Americans' financial data, our
Right.
social security numbers and our bank account numbers and our credit card numbers. That was stolen just lately.
And a lot more than that you don't even know about. Like they do pre-mortgage screening, employment screening, insurance company screening, a whole bunch of other stuff that they're not even talking about. And but the management never let a good crisis go to waste after the breach was discovered, but before it was announced to the public. What does a good CEO do, John?
Shorts his stock.
Yeah. Well, just sells it. Just sells the stock. It's the same thing when you get down to it.
Yeah.
And it had nothing to do with that. That should get them. That should definitely get them a trip to the courthouse anyway.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And it also makes you wonder what other data breaches, big hacks, have happened that we don't know about yet, where the victim is sitting on it trying to figure out what to do. But, that Equifax is just one of several really big, really scary hacks. Yahoo got hacked back in 2013, and they just announced that there were way more people exposed than they admitted at the time. And now it's something like 3 billion people around the world have had their data exposed as part of that hack. And then the NSA, the National Security Agency, got hacked a while ago, and their state-of-the-art hacking tools were stolen. And now those things are being released on the dark web for criminals and competing governments to take and use. And those are high-end hacking tools that can get into bank accounts and things like that. Meanwhile, I'm looking at an article right now that says that the cryptocurrency market is being thrown into chaos by people hacking accounts and hacking online exchanges, and that the total amount of Bitcoin that's been stolen since 2011 equals about $4 billion, which is, in a small market like that still, that's a ton of money to be stolen. So the takeaway from this is that, and then there's Puerto Rico, which still hasn't gotten its internet back yet, which means online bank accounts, online brokerage accounts, and online Bitcoin accounts are inaccessible. You can't get to your money if you can only access it online. So the takeaway from this is that
you can always write a check, John.
Yeah.
I don't know that there's anyone around to cash it, but you can write it.
Yeah, you can write a check. But if your bank isn't around to cash it for the recipient, nobody's going to take that check. Yeah, it's a very scary prospect. And for the rest of us who haven't been affected by it yet, it's a lesson. It's really important information that is coming out now. And the takeaway from it is that you need physical money. That's really the only thing in a connected world that is demonstrably safe from hackers. And hackers are really ahead in the arms race right now. They're breaking into more places than ever. And the defenses aren't keeping up with the strategies and tools that are evolving for the hackers out there. So it's a really target-rich environment at the moment for guys with high-end hacking tools and skills, and they're taking advantage of it. They're out there hacking everybody in sight, and it won't be long before our banks and our brokerage accounts are on that list. Because if you're a Russian hacker and you get a hold of the NSA's top-of-the-line hacking tools, do you think Charles Schwab accounts are safe at that point? Probably not. And so, as part of our preparation for the next crisis, whatever, like you in Florida, as we talked about before we went live, you're taking steps to make sure if another Cat 5 hurricane comes along, you're ready for it, right? Absolutely. And the financial side of that, because we can have a Cat 5 hack pretty much anytime right now, really serious hack that takes down a lot of important accounts and keeps them down for a while. That's on the horizon just based on current trends. You need some cash and you need some gold and silver in various denominations to get you through that, the transition from whatever you had in your bank and brokerage account before to whatever you're going to have after the hack is cleared up.
Absolutely.
So now more than ever, precious metals and dollar cash. I don't think a big hack necessarily affects nominal currency values. That's not really inflationary or deflationary. So a hack of some financial institutions might not make the dollar much less valuable in and of itself. So dollar cash is probably okay to have. It's a good thing to have. But also gold and silver coins are important to have because you just don't know what the financial ramifications of a cyber disruption of some sort are going to be. But you do know that historically gold and silver coins have held their value and actually gone up in value during crises. That's when everybody says, oh, I should have got some silver coins. Well, okay, I'll go get some now. What do I have to pay? $75 an ounce. All right, so be it. That's when that kind of a mindset takes hold. So you want to have bought your silver coins at $18 an ounce and be ready when this thing happens. You don't want to wait till it happens because that's like going to the grocery store to get bottled water and some, food that you can eat because your refrigerator isn't working the day after the hurricane. It's just not the right time to do it. So you want to do that now and then just put it there as insurance and be prepared when and if the next big hack happens to your financial accounts.
Hey, well, let's talk about Puerto Rico because that to me is the test case where you look at Puerto Rico and you say, my goodness, that could be Florida. That was Houston. Houston was just as bad as Puerto Rico, if not worse. And then you say, how do you plan for this? All right. And the thing is, we concentrate too much on staying where we are. All right. That was the weakest part of my plan was it was all predicated on staying here. And then when it was supposed to be a Cat 5, then a Cat 4, then a Cat 3 storm, staying here seemed like not such a bad thing, but you didn't really want to do it. Cat 3, a Cat 1, you can get through that. And then it's like, where do you go? And when do you leave also? Because what you have to understand about these storms is nobody knows really where it's going to hit. In most cases, they don't know. The last storm that just hit Mississippi was supposed to hit New Orleans, but it missed New Orleans. And that cone was very narrow, the cone of uncertainty, and it still missed it, hit Mississippi. So Biloxi. So the point is that it's a very difficult decision to make. You don't want to just go panicking and running off the first time you see a cloud on the weatherman screen in the middle of the Caribbean, that looks like it's going around in circles. It's just, what do you do? And I don't really have an answer for it. I think you got to be sensible and smart about it, but I'm not sure when you decide to go or stay. Like if a fire is coming by you, where you are, when are you going to leave? When you're choking on the smoke, or when they say it's coming your way and we don't know if we can stop it? What do you do? I've not found a good answer to that, John.
Yeah, no. Well, I think the point though, Kerry, is that everybody's now wrestling with these things for maybe the first time in their lives. I think most people were, let's say on the East Coast, very complacent about storms because we were coming out of a period when there were, occasional storms, but not big enough to really disrupt your life. They didn't have to be a central part of your planning. And now that's changed where we have come to accept the fact that there are going to be more storms in the future and we need to do something about it.
We don't know
now,
that.
Out west,
sure.
Same thing with fires.
Yeah.
These big forest fires that we've been having lately, they didn't used to happen. They weren't that disruptive back in the day. And now all of a sudden, everybody's thinking, okay, what do I do if there's this kind of a fire nearby me? Do I stay here or do I take off? And all of that is kind of subjective. Like we all have to make our own decisions about it. But the cyber angle of all this now is that you don't get any warning ahead of time. If somebody takes down the banking system in your region or your country, that happens probably overnight with no warning. You just go to, log on to your Bank of America account and you can't get there. It's just down. And it can be regional, it can be national. It theoretically could be global if things really get going. If a virus gets loose that infects financial accounts. And so that's another kind of storm, another kind of natural disaster almost that's looming out there and is possible. And we don't know the exact form of it, but we know stuff like that could happen because, on a smaller scale, but still fairly large scale, that kind of stuff is happening right this minute. So I think it's important for people to have kind of a comprehensive has a survivalist mentality now. You really have to be prepared for several different things, because wherever you live, there's a kind of a natural disaster that you might have to deal with. And also wherever you live, there's a financial disaster that's looming for a variety of reasons. We've taken on way too much debt. So just that alone will lead to some kind of a financial crisis out there. But we're doing it at a time when hacking, when cyber crimes and cyber war are these brand new threats that are potentially devastating, but that we've never seen before. There have been stock market collapses since the beginning of, financial history. And so there's always bear markets, and we've had to deal with that. But, somebody taking down the power grid or the banking system, that's brand new.
Hey, well, from a middle-aged single person, also, if they took down the internet, imagine what that would do to online dating. I mean, this would be a disaster like you cannot imagine, John. For so many people, I think you would see suicides and just all sorts of awful things. So we better make sure the internet stays up. Yeah,
well, I don't think Puerto Rico has their internet up yet. Yeah. And all they had was a storm, let there be a cyber attack and some kind of a natural disaster. And we could well be disconnected from our Facebook friends for a really long time, And
Very true.
That would be psychologically tough for a lot of people.
Hey, some people can't live without it, but hey, if you can't live without the show, send us an email, kl@kerrylutz.com, and find John, as always. Sign up for his newsletter at dollarcollapse.com. That's dollarcollapse.com. The Twitter feed's at Kerry Lutz, and the Facebook page is Financial Survival Network. Well, we'll talk to you next week, John. Be well.
Thanks, Kerry. See ya.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival